Welcome to the Surround Yourself podcast. Today we have Bridger Loftin of Groove Burgers, but we're going to start off his story a little bit before that. Welcome to the show, Bridger.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
So to start off, other than being a restaurant extraordinaire, just stuff to make you laugh.
Yeah, that's good.
Just tell us a little bit about your upbringing and, where you came from and that kind of thing. Start, high school area.
Grew up in Roanoke, Virginia until I was about 15. Went to high school there through 10th grade, moved to Raleigh, North Carolina for my 11th and 12th grade years, graduated from high school there, and then moved to Wilmington, North Carolina for about 6 months, and then moved to Athens.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
And so your early life, getting into cooking.
Been cooking since I was about 5 years old. My mother got me in the kitchen, and so I've just started cooking with her. Mm-hmm. First thing we probably made together was saltwater taffy when I was about 6 years old. Burned my hands.
Nice. So cooking's just always been in your genes. It's been your
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so your first experience working in a industrial or restaurant business was high school?
I was in high school. I was a junior in high school. I had been working at Food Lion as a bag boy. And then I went to work for a guy at a restaurant called Little Dino's Subs. And I was a delivery driver and a cook there for about a year.
Mm-hmm. And then where'd you go from there?
That was graduated from high school, moved to Wilmington, and I actually made and sold tie-dye T-shirts for a living down there for about 6 months. And then my brother had opened up Locos in Athens in 1988, which was the year I graduated from high school, and I moved down here. He opened that up in March or April of 1988 in a little building up on Oconee Street, which is a little road up in Athens in a neighborhood. And then I came down in November of 1988.
Oh, wow. So you've been, from the beginning of Locos, you jumped on board with that?
Yeah.
And you ran that up until somewhat recently, but
2000.
Because I know I worked for you in 2005.
Somewhere around there.
Worked for you for about a year before I moved to Savannah. But tell us a little bit about building up Locos, because y'all have how many locations are there when you left?
When we left, we had about 20, and I think my brother brought me out in 2015, in in August of 2015, and I think they have 8 stores now. Okay. They just opened another one in Lake City, Florida.
Oh wow,
I believe.
Mm-hmm. But what was it like? Because you started off with one store. I mean, what were some of the struggles you went through opening up second, third, fourth locations? Or was that all franchised out? Or
no, we didn't start franchising until I guess it was 1996. One of our partners, a guy named Hughes, I came down in 1988. Me and my brother ran the stores. My other partner, Hughes, had graduated and moved to Arkansas and went to law school at the University of Arkansas, and he was gone for about 5 years probably. And then he came back and wanted to start franchising it. And so between 1988 and 1995, 6, 7, somewhere around there.
Doesn't have to be exact. Mid-90s.
Yeah, mid-90s, mid to late 90s. We didn't start we sold our first franchise in, I think, 1996 in the summer, which was to 2 cooks that we had at the East Side store, which was our second location, and Gainesville, Georgia, and they're still open and running.
Awesome.
Hudson Wilson. Mm-hmm. And so he's still, 23 years later.
Hold on. All right.
So 23 years later, that he's still up and running in Gainesville.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so have a lot of your franchises been people who worked for you before, or were some of them just
several of
random
them
people who said, "Hey, I like your burger," or "I like your whatever French fries. I want to open one of these in this area"?
Well, it was people. You have to understand that people that buy a franchise are entrepreneurial in the spirit that they want to own their own business, but it's also a safer investment to buy into a franchise because it's an established business.
Right.
I mean, people
Yeah, you have
know,
that structure. You're kind of a semi-entrepreneur when you do it. You own it.
You're running your own business. You're
Yeah.
definitely an entrepreneur, and you're investing in your own business, and you have certain autonomy to a certain degree. But you also have practices and you have manuals, which if you open up your own place,
Yeah.
you know, you kind of fly by the seat of your pants for a little while.
Well, right. I mean, if you open up, Locos, you want the consistency. So if I go to Locos here in Athens,
And name recognition.
and if I go to Locos in, where'd you say the other one was in Florida?
Yeah, Lake City, Florida.
Lake City, Florida. If I order the chicken fingers, they should taste essentially the same.
They should be, exactly. And that's kind of the keeping that consistency in a franchise company is really is hard to do, because again, you're dealing with people that are entrepreneurs. And so entrepreneurs kind of have a spirit to them where,
They all of a sudden want to add their own stuff to the
think
menu.
they think that, they have that, wildcatting, I think is what they call it in the oil industry, where they go out and drill holes all over everywhere and hope they find oil. And entrepreneurs kind of have that spirit where, they are a little fearless. They have that little bit of, and they want to do things on their own. And so just keeping the consistency between locations is the hardest thing to do.
I bet. And did you have to form your own practices and stuff to check those
Absolutely.
procedures and keep everything to where it was the same? And
you do that, and you lean on your manufacturers too, because for help, because your manufacturers and your distributors. And so when you're dealing with a restaurant, you have a main supplier like U.S. Food Service or Cisco or P&G
Right.
Milton's or Cheney Brothers or anybody else. And so you keep your order guide, what they can order, locked down so that they can't just go into the system and order whatever they want to order and,
Right.
and sell it. That being said, everybody, when you open up a store and say, Savannah, and it's a bunch of Savannah guys that open up the store in Savannah, and they were, born and raised in Savannah.
I know the work ethic of Savannah very well,
Well, they've got what did
or lack of, I should say.
what did they say? What was that? What's that? Paula Dean. She on her cooking show. She said from Georgia, people from Augusta ask you what your daddy does. People from Macon ask you where you go to church, and people from Savannah ask you what you want to drink.
Sweet tea, right?
Right. And so anyway, I'm just using Savannah as an example. Is that being born and raised there, they know everybody, and so one of their friends is probably working for a food company, and so they come in and tell them how shitty how shitty our vendor's doing, and they need to give them a chance. And so you got food coming in the back door that shouldn't be coming in, and it's just it's a constant battle.
So
I'll never do it again. I'll
So
never
after
be
doing
involved in
that-
a franchise company.
Yeah,
ever.
well, that's how I was actually about to segue into. You started that franchise, or were part of that franchise, and then you bought into another different franchise, which was one of my personal favorite restaurants, and I'm kind of mad at you right now.
Sorry.
But you were involved with Keba, which is a Euro sandwich.
They're
style
called doner
place.
kebabs, which is like started in Turkey. So the euro is actually Greek, and the doner is actually Turkish, and it's really a German sandwich now because a bunch of Turks moved into Germany back in the 60s and 70s, and they brought with them the doner kebab. And so it's like the fast food of Germany. It's like a $1.5 billion industry in Germany. And we got involved with a German guy that had a place here in town named Occam, and we joined up with him and started franchising it. And that's how that went. And so I opened up a store on Epps Bridge here in Athens, and we owned that for probably 5 years till we sold it.
You got out of it, and now those have all seemed to have gone away. So I
They
can't get my
have.
fantastic sandwich with chipotle sauce on it, or whatever it was I got. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know what to point to on the board, or knew what to point to, I should say. But so you've gone from that, and now the thing that everybody that I talk to is raving about, your newest venture, which is a few years old at this point, is
4 years,
4
March
years.
1st.
4 years, March 1st, Groove Burger.
Yep.
And what lessons have you pulled from your other ventures to bring into Groove Burger to make the fantastic burgers? Actually, after we do this, I'm going to go and try because I have yet to make it because I always went to Caba when I came to Athens. So,
Well, make it by there, and I'll buy lunch today.
I'll come to support you. But anyway, how did Groove Burger start? Let's go with that.
It was 2015, and I was going through a transition. My now ex-wife was in seminary in Atlanta. The Locos, we were partners with my brother, and like I said, a guy named Hughes and a guy named Ben, and Ben had left the company several years earlier. And then there was just turmoil in the company, and I don't know, had felt that it was time to exit Locos. And so my brother was trying to buy out my other partner, and we came to a agreement that it was probably best for him just to run the company on his own. And so he ended up buying me out in 2015. I guess it was probably August or September or something like that of 2015. And so, since I hadn't had any time off, I took off about 2 months and just worked on my house, painted my house, and did some stuff, and kind of thought about what I wanted to do.
You didn't go stir crazy?
Absolutely not. No, it was
well, being in the restaurant business, you've probably been working 7 days a week for the last
25
since 1988.
Since I was 18. And so, it was kind of nice to have the time off. I ran out of things to do.
Yeah.
And so, I don't really know anything else besides the restaurant business. And everything else is kind of boring to me because I'm not a sit behind the desk kind of person. I need to be active. And so, I started looking for locations, and I found a great location, had great exposure in a new development. And I did R&D for Locos was what I did for years and years. I did all the purchasing, and I did all the contract negotiations, I did all the buying, and I did the menu development and R&D and that kind of thing. And so just having had that background, I wanted to do something that was going to be good. I wanted to make sure that everything was scratch made, because we had going back to consistency, like you're talking about, when you get into a company and you got 30 stores out there, you're trying to get stuff that requires not as much handmade product so that you can have that consistency.
Right.
You're talking like chicken tenders, and so if you're going to hand bread your chicken tenders, you better do that for a living, like a Zaxby's or a Raising Cane's or whatever, so that you have that consistency. And that's what you do. You make chicken tenders. But when you have chicken tenders as just a menu item, it's very hard to teach somebody how to do that on a consistent basis, because they just don't get enough practice at it. Yeah. If that makes sense. And so,
and I'm sure cooks and stuff are a pretty regular turnover as far as
you got about 1,000% turnover in the restaurant business.
Yeah. I mean, I know I think I worked there for just shy of a year. I mean, I know it seemed pretty regular. Not that the work environment was bad or anything like that. I just think people just kind of came and went.
Yeah, I mean, you've always got your core group of about 5 guys that stay in the kitchen for, several years. But then you've got, we're in a college town too. It's very transient. I mean,
that's true too.
People coming in and out, and, heavy load in school one semester, or they, whatever,
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember how busy that kitchen was during a football game, because I was working at the original location where you could see Stanford Stadium from the
right there
off the back deck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so getting into that consistency, you're going to buy, frozen chicken tenders that are already breaded. You're going to buy, dips that are pre-made, so that, they're not having to make a dip from a recipe. Your salsas you start getting made for you. You have manufacturers that once you get up to a certain volume will make that stuff for you. And you're not making it in store. It just comes in a 4 gallon case, 4 gallons. And so, when I wanted to do my next place, I knew that I wanted everything to be from scratch.
You wanted more of the artistic side, I guess, the artistic side of cooking versus just the
dropping
prepping.
stuff in a fryer or whatever,
absolutely.
And so we do everything from scratch. We make all of our salad dressings. We do everything from scratch. And that's what I wanted to do. It's pretty labor intensive.
Yeah.
But with one location, and that's what I have, is that it's easy to manage. It's a lot easier to manage because, I'm in there every day. Never make sure everything tastes good. In fact, I was in there yesterday and, prepped all afternoon. And so I knew that I wanted that. Secondly, I wanted something that was going to be, I hate to say recession proof, but something that was going to be, I knew that I wanted to keep my price point in a reasonable range, between $8 and $14 for lunch, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And then I wanted something that people will always eat.
Burgers.
And hamburgers is one of them. Hamburgers and pizza.
Yeah.
And it's something
And Mexican food.
And Mexican food.
I've seen some of the worst locations that just go from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant. All of a sudden, a Mexican restaurant pops in
kills
there.
it.
And all of a sudden, that Mexican restaurant is a permanent fixture in that town forever.
Absolutely. It's Mexican food is cheap and fast.
Yeah.
And, it's pretty similar wherever you go. And so, that's what I wanted. And I love hamburgers too. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah, everybody does.
Make
and
me
so
hungry.
we hand cut our fries. We hand cut our onion rings. We do everything from scratch. And so that was kind of the thing that I wanted to do. I also wanted it to be unique to a certain degree. So you're not going to, you can get a standard, which is actually one of our hamburgers, a standard cheese. It's called the standard. But we have some other unique things in there. We're doing our own caramelized onions, and you can get, we're doing gorgonzola cheese, and
You do like a
Applewood
breakfast
bacon.
burger with an egg on it, stuff like that.
We did. Actually, we make our own sausage too, because we do sausage balls. We make our own sausage from scratch. And so we were doing a sausage patty with a fried egg and bacon and cheese and mayonnaise and all that. And we ran that for a little while. It did actually pretty well, but I took it off the menu, which is
Just because.
yeah. That's also kind of nice being a single unit operator, is that I can add and take off the menu whenever I want to.
Right.
It's like, hey, let's try this out for a week. And it's like, I don't have anybody to tell me no.
Do you have plans to franchise or bridge out or open second locations? Or are you just like, hey, you know what? I get to focus. I get to be good. And just have all my attention on this one project, and franchising to try to make more money is not as important as just keeping where I want to be. Does that question make any sense? Or
No, I completely understand.
because I kind
what
of
you're
confused
saying.
myself the way I worded it.
As how long have you known me? You were in junior high school when I met you, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And so I'm a little ADD.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for something else to do. I get bored fairly easily. I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not bored with Groove Burger, but I'm always looking for something new to do. So yeah, I'm looking for a second location. I've been, I wanted to make sure that this store was up and running. One thing I don't do at this location is I don't advertise. My advertising budget is basically about $70 a quarter on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't do any advertising whatsoever. My store is right on the road front, and so my sign is really kind of like a billboard anyway.
Well, just word of mouth wise, it made it all the way to Anderson, South Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. And so word of mouth, people, I don't know. I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second, but it's like, for me, advertising, it's the world of the DVR. It's the world of Sirius Radio or Spotify or iTunes. And nobody reads print. Are you kidding me?
Oh, no. Social media advertising is definitely the way to go. And there's a billion different theories and a billion different ways to advertise on social media.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that you're doing it on a $70 budget. And
for $70 in a 7-day period, I can reach like 25,000 people. And granted, you're not going to get their attention. You're going to have what they call an impression, which is
it shows up on somebody's screen.
Right. Somebody's going to see the ad. And so, you can
you have impressions and you have clicks, and then you have how many people are walking through the door.
Right.
Which is the one that matters, is the people who are walking through the door.
Right. And so really my goal is to get people to like my Facebook page, so that when I post something on my Facebook page, that doesn't cost me anything. And it's going to show up in their feed because they like my page. And so, it's been pretty effective.
Yeah. Are you doing anything with like Grubhub or any of those fast delivery things? I haven't researched those much. I just know that they exist.
And I use a local company called Cosmic Delivery. There's a plug for Trent Walls. I don't know how anybody makes money on those things. I've run the numbers. I don't know if you're familiar how they work or not. But
kind of. I know that they tack on a little bit to the menu price, and I guess you have a delivery fee. I have no idea. I was just curious.
Well, like let's take
this was not a question I had written down. It was just
let's take Uber Eats for instance.
Yeah.
Uber Eats. You can, I believe you can raise prices on there, but I just don't think that if somebody's going to order, this is just ethically and personally to me. You shouldn't raise your prices if somebody wants the food delivered. Like, it's still the same food, and I get it that people want to make up the difference, but Uber Eats is the only person in that entire transaction that makes money. They want 30%.
Oh, wow.
Of your delivery. And so I don't know if you know much about restaurants, but I mean, if
aren't you running like a 20% margin on most of it?
No restaurant makes a 20% margin or a 30% margin. And their whole argument is that, well, you're filling in dead time in the afternoons when people are delivering. And so when people want delivery, it's usually on your slow times and you're keeping people busy. And my argument is that when I'm slow, that's when I get my prep work done. And now you're telling me I got to have another cook online to cook your delivery orders, of which I'm actually losing 20% every time.
So you're running 10% margins on a restaurant, roughly.
10% is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, my whole theory is that I'd just rather not sell that food. Yeah. I'd rather not have that business if I'm losing money, because not only is it costing me payroll because I've got to have somebody on staff to cook that food, which is costing me.
Right.
But it takes away from my prep, which if I'm doing those deliveries, I've got to make up for that on prep. So I've got more cost on prep. I got an extra cook on, and I'm losing 20%.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
And so I've run the numbers, and you've got to be doing...
well, like, because Locos had their own delivery drivers.
Right. And the way that I ran the number, well, we do. We're internal delivery. And, our drivers are doing other things than delivering food when they're in the store. They're also doing some prep work. They're making sure that, they're doing other stuff. And so, and they're getting tipped, and there's a delivery charge on their food. And so they're a tipped employee. And so their pay rate is not, it's $5 an hour, $5.25 an hour,
right?
Because they're getting tips and everything else, and so they actually do pretty well, especially when gas prices are $2 a gallon. And most of them
drive a Prius,
and they're driving Corollas, with 40 miles to the gallon.
Yeah,
but I can't make the numbers work. The only way that I figured, I ran all the labor and I ran all the what it costs to have delivery drivers in there, and they have what's called hire non-owned insurance, which is what you have to cover if you're a delivery driver. It means you hire this guy, but you don't own the vehicle, so they're insured through you, but you don't own the vehicle.
Gotcha.
And so after running all the numbers, you got to be doing about 18% of your sales volume through delivery to make 20% work. So at 30%, I didn't even run the numbers at 30%, because when somebody comes in, they tell me they're going to take 30% of my transaction. I'm just like, see ya. I'd rather not sell it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so with Cosmic Delivery, I negotiated with them and they really wanted me on their delivery platform because they're a local company, and they wanted to get into Oconee County. And so I negotiated with them on what I thought was a fair deal.
Gotcha.
And so
well, there got to be a fair deal. I mean,
well, yeah,
it's not a fair deal. I mean, to cook something to lose money, or to make anything and lose money.
Well, no, and it's this whole thing is, as an entrepreneur, it's like, why am I working so hard to enrich a guy in California?
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's like I got into business for myself so that I could work for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see the fruits of my labor.
Or burgers are your labor.
Or burgers are my labor.
Well, awesome. This has been a lot of fun. And I know you got to get in to start doing prep work, speaking of which.
Are we done?
Yeah, I reckon we can finish it up, because now I'm starving. Thanks.
No problem.
But it's been a pleasure, Bridger.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon. And hey, maybe we'll follow up in a year or two and see where Groove Burgers is at now. Might be a national chain. You never know. Doubt it, because that doesn't seem to be your model.
No, not this time around. I've done the franchise company.
You're done with the franchise.
Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you, Danny.